Page 310. Actual, earnest scientists and helpers make an effort for real cognitions and great beneficial knowledge in relation to the life and the evolution of the human being in every respect, without any ill fantasy and small-minded, irrational teaching. But unfortunately, these kinds of scientists and helpers are very hard to find because they are, on account of their honest and real knowledge and abilities, and on account of their profound cognitions and deeds, shunned, suppressed, and pressed into the background by their colleagues and fellow human beings. But this was indeed already the case since time immemorial, because the incomprehensible and new, or which in truth, however, is already millions of years old, do not want to be accepted, because certain sciences are not able to free themselves from their small-minded, irrational teachings. This should now, however, not mean that every scientist or healer has fallen prey to an irrational teaching, because fortunately there are the exceptions to the rule, and therefore real knowers of the material can be found. Therefore also those who are knowing in the factor of the psyche are knowers who have recognized the fact that a stricken psyche cannot be healed by medication or poisons, etc., and that a recovery of a psychically stricken human being can only be achieved by the patient him or herself alone. So therefore also no psychiatrist is able to bring any recovery to a psychically stricken human being, because such a recovery can only be gotten under way and accomplished by the respective patient him or herself. At this, a helper or psychiatrist represents only a guide for the ill human being if the necessary cognizance for this is really present. These wisdoms, however, are by and large based on much deeper wisdoms and on deeper knowledge than they are learned and applied in general. Autogenic training, or autosuggestion, Cooee method, or opposite thinking in equally suggestive form, etc., do not help a really psychically stricken human being in any wise. Quite the contrary, they represent high-grade poisons, high-grade fuel for extending the damage, dangerous fuel which is poured into an already inflaming fire, and which, even more so, ignites into an flaming inferno. But in order to be able to understand this, the knowledge about the high-value logic of the subconscious is necessary. Only an erroneous assumption of how the subconscious could function is unfortunately not enough. Quite the contrary, it is destructive and deadly. The logic of the subconscious works with razor sharpness and very precisely, so consequently, an autogenic training, or the Cooee method, etc., inevitably brings forth exactly the opposite of the hoped-for objective. Therefore, such methods may only be used with other and non-psychic illness manifestations. With psychically ill human beings, these aforementioned methods are able to bring the complete ruin and the destruction in every respect. If warmth and tiredness, etc., are created through autosuggestion, then this is naturally reflected on the body, while the subconscious then releases its overload of that which manifests as an intensive burden and has brought forth the psychic affliction. The Cooee method, away, 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 or I feel better and better in every respect, and so on and so forth, creates exactly the same symptom in the subconscious as an autogenic training. Since the subconscious thinks absolutely logically, it immediately signals exactly the opposite of, away, 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 or of, I feel better and better in every respect, etc., because for the subconscious it is absolutely logical that the opposite of healthy is simply ill, or better, simply bad, and of away, come, or it is here, etc. Since the subconscious therefore functions and works absolutely logically, one must in no wise think unlogically, or thus opposite, autosuggestive, Cooee method, etc., because such methods are really only suitable for psychically healthy human beings, whereas they are able to bring the complete annihilation to a psychically stricken human being. However, if the unlogicality of the psychiatry, etc., is nevertheless practiced and applied, then an unresponsible, destructive, and deadly irrational teaching is thereby brought to use and spread. A psychically ill human being can only be freed from his or her suffering by one single method: real, neutral, positive thinking. This means that the human being concerned must in no wise think of something opposite to his or her suffering. The thinking must concentrate on something totally neutral, positive, on something that has not one iota to do with the suffering, neither directly nor indirectly. But before the neutral, positive thinking in this direction can be explained, it is necessary to explain the negative and positive once more, because this material is very extensive and difficult to understand. Consequently, an explanation of the kinds of thinking and of the positive and negative, which has already been made in another place, is therefore to be described in greater detail. It has already been explained that thoughts can only be divided into two kinds: positive or negative. Negative in this case means evil, ungood, negating, and doubting thoughts. They undermine the morals, the psyche, and the advancement. Like magnets, they attract evil human beings, all terrible things, and everything evil. Through them, all kinds of failures and disharmonies find entrance into the life. Strength and health are weakened, disinterest arises, and then, eventually, everything is driven to the self-annihilation. Positive thoughts, however, are upbuilding, life-affirming, good, and healthy. They form and strengthen the good character and the virtues, attract desired human beings and things, as well as helpers and real friends. Success and happiness become constant companions. All of this is now to be understood like this. The human being needs the negative as much as the positive, but with the difference that this necessary negative is just as good as the positive. This means that the negative and positive must be equalized to a larger extent and thus form a single factor. If, on the contrary, one or the other gains the upper hand, then the negative on the one side or the positive on the other side becomes too great. Therefore, it gets very badly out of control of the good human nature and becomes overloaded. So, therefore, it is to be understood that negative Ausartung attracts all evil and terrible things, whereas positive, normal, or therefore equalizedness of negative positive, attracts and calls forth all that is good and affirmative. Therefore, if now a human being thinks only negatively in any direction, then this means a negative Ausartung, which only attracts the negative. If the human being thinks, however, only in a positive view, then this means an Ausartung, again, which likewise brings only harm, namely in the respect that through the too great, quote, goodness, or mostly as well as the submissiveness produced by religions, the human being concerned is exploited by third parties. But if a human being thinks in a healthy and normal manner, that is to say, he or she thinks in a healthy, positive-negative manner, thus equalized, then he or she attracts all that is good and affirmative. Healthy, positive, negative thinking therefore means that one must think rightly in accordance with the law of nature. Thinking in accordance with the law of nature in turn means, however, that there must be just as much positive as negative, but without any Ausartung. This law of nature can be explained very well with the following example. If an animal in the wild is negatively or positively very badly out of control of its good nature, then it is eliminated, extinguished, and killed in accordance with the law of nature. Either the animal is eliminated by elementary powers, by illness or disease, by other animals, or by the human beings, etc. An animal that is very badly out of control of its good nature in the wild is therefore, logically and in accordance with the law of nature, eliminated and killed. And precisely this law of nature is positive-negative in equal value, therefore equalized and unified. This law contains just as much positive as well as negative, through which, and only in this manner, is the life and survival guaranteed. In other words, this therefore means that killing and eliminating in the wild is in and of itself a negative deed, and that this deed is nevertheless necessary and required in order to eliminate something unfit for life, through which all other life-capable life are protected and kept alive. The deed of the killing in this form in the wild is therefore negative-positive, therefore equalized. The killing of an animal that is very badly out of control of its good nature is necessary, through which other and good life can be protected. A negative deed that is very badly out of control of the good human nature is only present if the killing takes place without logical justification and without compelling reason. And likewise, a positive deed that is very badly out of control of the good human nature is present if the animal that is very badly out of control of its good nature is not killed but is allowed to live. Thereby it is then namely guaranteed that the animal that is very badly out of control of its good nature develops into a beast, and with time boundlessly destroys everything which just comes near it. However, this must not be, otherwise all life on earth would be destroyed in the shortest time. To prevent this, everything is logically subject to a very distinct law of nature, which, without any Ausartung, is just as much negative as positive, thus equalized. In accordance with nature, therefore, every Ausartung in the wild must be eliminated, which is fully logical, because only so can the life be preserved. So it is also only logical that the human nature defends itself against everything which the human being, with their erroneous development and with their megalomania, undertakes against it in a manner that is very badly out of control of the good human nature. Meddling in the handiwork of the nature therefore means that the nature logically rebels against it and strikes back with death, ruin, and annihilation. Observed and considered from this real view, various natural catastrophes are also only a defense and a natural reaction to the erroneous mode of action and the applied lunacy and insanity of the human beings against the nature and the infringement and disdain and contempt of its laws. Since a fully logical law is incumbent upon the nature, and it therefore is only able to act logically, every Ausartung in it must be eliminated and eradicated. But the nature is only then able to follow this logical law if it is logical in itself, and precisely it is so because as nature it is built up logically in itself. A logical mode of thinking of the human being is just as in accordance with the law of nature as the logical mode of action of the nature itself. With the human beings, however, there is the circumstance that they must first recognize and learn to follow the laws of nature, and only from this be able to act according to their own choosing. From this it results that he or she must therefore first equalize the negative and positive thinking so that he or she can then thereby follow the laws of nature in a human wise and in responsibility.